Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Happy Monday. Today's Indigenous Peoples Day. So I just want to wish everyone a very happy Indigenous Peoples Day as we all continue to work towards decolonizing our identities so that we can really embrace our Indigenous roots, because that's part of who we are. And so we should be very happy and proud of that and learn to embrace that. And so today we have a perfect speaker to help us celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day. This sister right here, hermana, that I've known for a long time. We've both been on this journey of decolonizing ourselves through danza and ceremony for a long, long time. And so it's an honor for me to have with us today Elena Rios. And Daniel Garcia, you're here. I see you now. Thank you for joining us, Daniel. So today we are going to learn about a few things, and I'm going to go ahead and explain what that is. Elena is going to share her knowledge about our connection to nature as Indigenous people, and she's going to include in that discussion the topic about climate change, environmental justice movements, plant medicines, and our ancestral knowledge and our Indigenous knowledge, right, that we all carry, and how that connects us as Indigenous people to the natural, to nature and the lands around us. Elena Rios is a certified nature and forest therapy guide, interdisciplinary artist, and CWN employee of the Chumash Fire Department, a Nahua Indigenous woman of the Americas with mixed ancestry. She draws inspiration for plant medicine and the importance of nature connection practices from her late grandmother, a curandera in the San Fernando Valley, California. Daniel Garcia Ordaz is a TEDx speaker and Pushcart Prize nominee. Daniel Garcia Ordaz, aka the Poet Mariachi, is the author of Sensontle Mockingbird YA edition, Songs of Empowerment, and you know what I'm saying? He teaches at La Jolla Early College High School. Is that HS for high school? Okay. Garcia is a native Mission, Texas, and is a former newspaper journalist and a Navy veteran. Thank you, Elena and Daniel, for being with us today. Thank you so much for sharing space.
Gracias.
So what I want to go ahead and do is I explain to our speakers, they each have about 20 to 25 minutes. And as you all know, we'll take a break in between for some Q&A. So I want you all to, obviously we're all going to be listening with all intention and gathering as much precious knowledge as we can from our speakers, and then be ready for discussion afterwards, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and allow Elena to go first. Is that okay, Elena?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and have you go first, and I will set my timer as well so that we can try to stay on track here. But thank you again for coming, and you can go ahead and start. I'm gonna hand it over to you.
Okay. Bueno, pues les dio someteo cualitonali. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Elena Rios. And, before anything, I just really want to give thanks to the Creator for another day of life and all the elements of life, the water, the earth, the fire, and the air. And, another day of life here on the ancestral land of the Chumash people. It's always good to remember the ancestral people of the land that we're living on. And I'm sure that your professor talks to you about that a lot. I want to thank Profe Veronica Xochi Balades too for this chance to meet you and talk to you about things that we care about. I'm going to talk to you about the importance of nature connection today, and I do have some pictures and a short video to show you, but I have not attempted to actually use this in a Zoom chat before, so bear with me, if I'm a little bit slow in that regard. I wanted to talk to you about it in terms of personal and community and global health as it relates to right relationship with the earth, ourselves, and each other. And, really, this is not a new concept. It's one that's rooted in ancestral knowledge all over the world. It speaks to many ancient practices of the importance of being connected to nature. From the Indigenous perspective, everything is related. And a couple weeks ago, I had a chance to attend the National Tribal and Indigenous Climate Conference. And it was hosted in Arizona. And the Hopi Nation was there, and the Navajo Nation, and nations from all over the US and Alaska, but also the Maasai tribe from Kenya was represented, and the Tibetan people in China. And so the things that, these things that we're talking about right now are that thing, that thread that links us all in our humanity across the whole globe. So since in the indigenous perspective, Native science talks about everything being animate, and Western science talks about everything being inanimate. And so there were basic differences between how early European naturalists or colonists who came here, what their perceptions were when they viewed our natural landscape in the Americas, and how to interact with it. For example, like John Muir, maybe you guys have heard of him. And sometimes when the early colonists came to the US, like John Muir, as they headed out west, from their cultural perspective, sometimes they thought that they were looking at a vast wilderness, and their concepts of how to interact with it were very different than the Native concept on interacting with the wilderness. For example, if an early naturalist came over a hillside in California and saw a big array of bulbs growing that are a local food source, the way that Native peoples cultivated was with harmony and in relationship to the landscape, not against it. So it might have looked like a natural rhodea bulb field, but in fact, it was a tended field because Native people knew how to divide the bulbs and spread them out. And so they built relationship with the land, and they built relationship with their food source, and worked more in harmony with the landscape that is already there. They didn't try to change it. Whereas when John Muir came, he would be like, oh, that's a natural landscape and we shouldn't touch it. We shouldn't touch any trees or even break a branch. Interestingly enough, in the Yosemite Valley, when indigenous elders were asked, how come certain trees and brush are dying out in the Yosemite Valley? And their answers are because no one is using them anymore, and they don't feel you know, purposeful or things like that. And so the message being that everything wants to be in relationship with the other, and it's just a matter of being in balance with how much you're using and only using what you need. Whereas the cultural concept for the colonists was to just come in and take as much as you can and sell as much as you can and make money off it. And there was not any thought given to the next 7 generations forward on what their needs would be. So there was just a lot of cultural differences. Now I want to try and show you this picture, and give me a second here, because it's really a good example.
So as long as you have the picture open on your desktop, and then when you go to share screen at the bottom of our Zoom here, it'll all these little pictures will pop up, and then you can select which one you want to show.
Okay, so I'm trying to find, now I have them all in my Google, but I'm not seeing how to get into my Google account here.
So so your Google account has to be open already, and then that would your screen, it'll pop up as an option because you already have it open.
Okay, well then next time. So what I want to share with you is that in the early 1600s, when colonizers came to the east coast of our country, and these photos are not hard to look up, our country of the United States was very densely forested from the East Coast all the way to the Midwest. And when colonists came, they didn't like the humidity and the darkness and the dampness that they were experiencing with all this dense forestation. And so what they started doing was they actually purposely started cutting the trees down in the 1600s. And it's very easy to find maps that show the denseness of the forest from the 1600s to the 1800s to being almost no forest in that whole area. And so, as a matter of fact, they were successful at changing the climate. But unfortunately, that beginning of doing that in the 1600s in this country, it has contributed to the climate change that we're experiencing right now. And it's interesting because sometimes we think about the Amazon forest and the clear cutting going on there. But interestingly enough, that went on here too. And our country, or the United States, still hasn't really, recovered from that. So, so talking about, climate change, for people to live in relationship to the land, we talk about when we live in relationship to the land, that makes us think out a little bit more our agricultural methods, industrialization, deforestation, in the healing and taking care of the earth. And because when we heal and take care of the earth, as our ancestors have always taught, we are actually taking care of ourselves because we are nature. And so taking care of the earth is about restoration, personal, community, global. One of the things that's linked to the cultural and community health and resilience in our connection to our ancestral knowledge with relationship to nature is I think one of the answers to our current climate change predicament is through the weaving together of scientific knowledge and indigenous knowledge. And that was something that's talked a lot about the National Tribal and Indigenous Climate Conference. And so I wonder, how you connect with and relate with the earth, because one thing that I have learned is that one of the ways to connect with your ancestral voice that you already have inside of you is by deepening your connection to nature. Sometimes we talk about our own medicine. What is our own medicine that we have inside of us? What is meant by that? Well, why is it important? When we talk about that thing where if you turn off your cell phones, you turn off your technology, and you spend time connecting to that voice inside of yourself, that ancestral voice that has everything that you already need in it for your own personal healing and your knowledge. And there's a lot of different ways to connect with that voice. One of the ways that I have connected with it over time is through my artwork. Because I noticed that when I am painting a painting, even this surfboard back here, once I hit like the 2-hour mark, I kind of dip into a different state of consciousness. And when I'm painting, sometimes ancestral knowledge starts to emerge from the painting. I see the maestra shaking her head because she knows, and because you kind of go into a different state of mind. And when you're in that state of consciousness, it kind of allows your ancestral voice to come through, connects you with the Huehuetlatoli, which is that sacred knowledge. For us, the Huehuetlatoli. But whether you're Azteca, Mexica, Chumash, it doesn't matter. You have your own version of the Huehuetlatoli, your Celtic, whatever. Another thing that has helped me to connect with even deeper with nature is the danza Azteca, Mexica, because the 3-footed drum that we normally often dance to is made from the hollowed out trunk of a tree. And we like to think that the drum beats are moving our bare feet touching the earth, which are the prayers that we're offering in the steps of our dances. We don't always get to dance barefooted, but I have noticed that it's a stronger connection for me when I am able to have bare feet on the ground. And within the danza, we have ceremonies of renewal in relationship with all of the elements of life and all of these energies. And so that was one branch of the danza that because our ceremony revolves around rhythms and cycles of nature and harvests and all of these things, that was one branch that helped me connect at another level. but there's many branches of study in the danza. It could be dance, it could be music, it could be art, but also we have a very, very big plant medicine branch of study within these ways. And so that brought me full circle back to my grandma's work in the San Fernando Valley. And so one of the basic things about being a curandera or someone that works with plant medicine is building relationship with the plant. So even from the time you plant the seed, from the time you grow it, before you even harvest from it, that you're building relationship, you're asking permiso before you gather from the plant. So everything is done in a ceremonial way, in an intentional and thoughtful way, and kind of like an exchange of appreciation. And that even goes back to our relatives here in early California, when, you know, the European piece of thought was to own property and own land. And while California Indians didn't have a concept of owning something, they did have a concept ancestrally of recognizing that this particular family has a relationship with that pine nut tree. So they honored that relationship with that pine nut tree, and that family alone built relationship over generations to harvest from that tree and give that thanks. And then, you know, other ceremonies that we have, like the sweat lodge, the Native American sweat lodge, is another way to drop into that deeper connection with the earth. Again, when you're in a sweat lodge, you don't have your phone on, you're not on your computer, and so you don't have things that distract you from that which you already have inside you, which is everything that you need. And then, you know, all through my 20s, I was a forest firefighter for the U.S. Forest Service. I worked on specialized crews like interagency hotshot crews, which are kind of like the Marines of the Forest Service. I started out on the Sequoia National Forest, and I worked for a man named Ben Charlie, who's chief of the Mono Nation. And I met many people, tribal people from all over the West when I was on the hotshots, because there's like a tradition of firefighting within Native communities now. And so where I'm going with that is that when I was working as a hotshot, I was literally sleeping outdoors my whole life was outdoors, whether it was day or night, I was outdoors. Any change in temperature affected my life, any change in the wind, any change because everything affected all of the natural elements around me, and the behavior of the fire I was at, and whether I was comfortable or whether I was freezing or whether I was in Idaho and it started hailing on me or something. And so that was another component to me, you know, building even deeper level of connection with nature. But also, you know, I know that I think I have 5 more minutes. Do I, Vero?
Yes, you have for like 8 minutes or so.
Okay, great. So within our tradition, the Nahua Azteca Mexica tradition, and the connection to our own indigenous knowledge and community, the Tlamatinime said that all the truths on earth are in flowers, which nature and observing, poetry and song. And there's many, many codices written about that are really is a science about a different level of connection to these natural elements. You have all these knowledge in you, whether you're from that tradition or another tradition. It's just a matter of finding that thing that assists you in connecting it with it. For example, my son is really into surfing, and that's his spirituality. I mean, he just totally drops into that state of being when he's in the ocean, because he has that oneness with the movement of the ocean and the rhythms of the ocean. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. I think that right now, time is of the essence to take action over climate change. I think it is up to Indigenous people to be that loud voice about it. I think that people take care of what they love. And if we can get people to get off their phone, get out of their house and connect in a deeper way to nature, fall in love with nature or more in love with nature, then they will take care of it. because humans naturally celebrate the things that they love. And you know, the truth of the matter is, when the environment is not well, we are not as well as we could be either, because it's the web of interbeing, and we are part of the web of interbeing. And when we connect with nature, it reminds us and connects us to that ancestral medicine. So just real quickly, nature is therapy. You know, it's therapy for mind, body, and spirit. I want to leave you with this thought, that, you know, there's a fatigue of living in a dominant culture in which you consistently have to resist. And so the dominant culture or society that we live in is tending patriarchal, misogynistic institutions rather than the Mother Earth. So time spent in nature has health benefits to help build resilience in resisting against a dominant culture. It helps keep you grounded and focused. It builds up your immune system and your production of white blood cells. And it gives you a chance to go from operating in your sympathetic nervous system, which often the time we are when we're in these, when we're in this culture of stress all the time, whether you're worried about being in traffic, whether you're worried about paying bills, how you're going to pay for this, for college, whatever, whenever you're, or right at, you know, when you're in that's kind of low level stress, you're constantly emitting stress hormones through your body. So when you live in a culture that you feel like you have to constantly resist in, you always have, even though you might not be running from a lion, like maybe you're, you know, long ago you might be, and that's intense surge of stress, which I've, you know, but if that low level of stress is just that stress hormone going through your body, and over years and years and years, it brings down the central nervous system. And then, so from the scientific perspective, it's going to slowly break your health down. And so if we can find practices that help us drop into our parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest, digest, and self-heal mode, and sometimes we might have to just intentionally try to drop into it. If you can find that practice where that type of rest, whether it be through danza, whether it be through surfing, through prayer runs, through just jogging, through a workout at the gym, all of these things are as a holistic component to your better health. And I think I'm out of time.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Folks, does anyone have any questions or comments for Elena? I do want to share before you all start asking, because I love the comments that you're sharing in the chat. So please share that out loud. But also I do want to share that even though I am a danzante, and that's my way, and an artist, and those are my ways of connecting with ancestral knowledge and with nature and all the forces around us, I was lucky enough to participate in a nature walk with Elena, where she took us just a beautiful natural landscape by the river, by the water, by plants. And she just really walked us through being able to completely connect with the land and with nature. And it was really, really powerful. And this is coming from somebody who is very intentional with connecting with nature in a lot of ways. But even though I put that into practice as much as I can, that experience was still very powerful for me. And so thank you for those medicine walks that you host, Elena, because that was, I wasn't expecting it to be so, I guess, powerful. I should have known better, but I wasn't expecting it to have that much of an impact on me as much as it did, only because I love nature, right? I love connecting with nature. And it seemed as if I had never connected with nature before at that level, to just feel and be aware of every little thing around me was just like next level. So that was really amazing. But folks, if you want to go ahead and ask questions, please, now's your time.
I wanted to say what you said was very beautiful. Like, I really, 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 really relate to what you were saying about your plants and how you have to be one with them. And I think that's very true, because during the summer, I was going through a really hard time, and I took up gardening, and it really changed my aspect of like thinking. It really made me into like a centered person, and it's made me more grateful for this earth that we live on. And I think that a lot of people should do it and be one with the earth in general. And we should be taught this. Like I remember when I was in elementary school, we used to do gardening all the time. But now they, like in the education system, they took that away from children to not teach them how to do that. And I think it's just horrible for them to do that too. And I think it's just in general what you're saying is just beautiful because everyone should appreciate the world as you do in your eyes.
Thank you for sharing that, and thank you also, Profe. And you know, I'm interested in exploring this a lot more with you. So maybe Profe Veronica and I can have another conversation later about that, because you do live right by some mountains. I mean, you study over there. So maybe she and I can talk about some things, but thank you for those comments. Does anyone have anything else?
How many of you, some of you were sharing, and if somebody was already gonna go ahead and speak, go ahead, but some of you were sharing like some of the medicinas that your grandmothers would grow and use for teas or whatnot. So if you want to share about that too. But was it Brianna, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask a question. So I'm actually taking nutrition right now, and like we've been learning about how like the different like farming practices are. And I was wondering if our speaker, Miss Rios, if you know anything about biodynamic farming.
I don't know anything about biodynamic farming. I have done a lot of study on the cultivating of native plants of all kinds. I think that nutrition is a very important subject right now, because a lot of our health issues in our communities are related to diets that lack the ingredients of a decolonized diet. And so that you might want to do some research on what is a decolonized diet, because in some ways the system is set up for people that don't have enough money to cheap food is less expensive, but it makes you sick.
Yeah.
And so and the farming methods that we have in the Central Valley are not sustainable. We used to have many creeks and rivers going through the Central Valley. We used to have herds of caribou there and everything, and we don't anymore. And part of one of the components to climate change and drought is the farming methods that are used now are not sustainable. So that is a very important course of study that you're on, very relevant right now. And I also wanted to tell you that elders at the Tribal and Indigenous Climate Conference I was at did all echo the sentiments in most that they felt that not only are these weather changes connected to climate change, but also the pandemic, because humans in general have been not living in relationship and balance to the earth. And so this is just a very multi-layered subject, and you guys are the future, and you guys are, I really feel like this is the time for studying different types of farming methods for sure, and different ways of being. And even if it's the simplest thing as that first glass of morning when you get up, the first glass of water in the morning, even if it's as simple as taking that glass, looking at that water, and you know what, thanking that water and that sacred source of life before you even take your first drink, you're gonna really feel differently about that first drink of water in the morning, and it kind of will set the tone for the rest of your day. Even the simplest thing, something I do now is I carry a fork and a knife with me in my backpack everywhere I go, because I don't want to be using plastic utensils if I have to eat outside, get food in the calle or whatever. Simple things that add up if we're all being conscious about it. And
Yeah, I completely agree. And the reason why I mentioned it is because I had never heard of it either. But like this type of farming is very close to like indigenous practices, where like it goes off of like the moon and it doesn't use seeds that have been like crossed with like another plant. Like it's all like original seeds that they use, and like it has to go through like a 6-year process, and like it has to be on certain soil, and like it's just like really cool. So I kind of thought Like
Very
it would
important.
be interesting to like just talk about that too.
It is, it's very important. And if you are interested in reading something else that's in relates to the things we talked about, there's a book called Tending the Wild by Kat Anderson. I'm gonna put it here. And I feel like anyone living in California should read it.
And Brianna, if you have any links or sources to what you're talking about, that would be amazing if you could share that, because I really feel like all of us should be growing something and growing it in a responsible, ethical way that is in balance with nature. And the way that we see everything going in society and around the world, I think that more and more we're really going to have to learn how to grow our food so that we're not so dependent on a food industry that is not looking out for our well-being, right? So the more that we grow our own foods and that we do it in ways that our indigenous ancestors did, the more nutrition we're going to get out of that food that we're growing ourselves. And we've lost that art in many ways because of through the process of colonization. So to grow your own food is also helping us to decolonize as a people.
And one last thing that I would want to say, getting back to, you know, your health, remember that everything you do in life, everything starts with you taking care of yourself. What can you do to take care of yourself? And that's a holistic question, all these holistic components, your nutrition, your rest, your mind, body, spirit. And if you're ever having one of those days where you just feel like you're just overwhelmed and you just can't do this anymore, I really invite you to just go lay down on the earth somewhere and take a few deep breaths and just let that feeling of that connection kind of cradle you.
That is very true.
If you have a backyard or a front yard, just take your shoes off and just stand on the earth for a minute. It just feels so good. And also know that the bottom of our feet have the biggest pores. And so all of the minerals that the earth has within it, if you're standing on it, it absorbs that, so it balances you out as well, because we're made of everything that the earth is made out of. And so, and a lot of the times, I'm not even gonna say sometimes, but a lot of the times we're completely out of balance. And so sometimes it just takes us standing on the earth and absorbing those minerals and energies and vibrations to bring us back into balance.
Yeah, and what if it was a revolutionary act to take care of yourself in a society that really doesn't want you to succeed? What if it was a revolutionary act to protect the environment? What kind of ancestor do you want to be? Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you. All right, anyone. So, and there's a lot of chat going on in the chat box, so if you want to check that out as well, Elena. In the meanwhile, I want to go ahead and introduce Daniel. Well, I've already introduced Daniel, but I want to go ahead and welcome you to give the platform to you at this moment so that you can also share with us your knowledge and your wisdom about what it is to be Chicana, Chicano, what it is to have this identity and all of the beautiful messiness that comes with that. So Daniel, welcome. I'm gonna go ahead and hand it over to you. Are you unmuted? I don't see you. I don't know what happened to him. I don't see him. He may have lost connection. So I'm gonna try to reach out to him again. But if some of you, in the meanwhile, keep the conversation going. Oh yeah, Daniel is not on here. So I'm gonna try to reconnect with him. But if some of you wanna actually use your little reaction button to raise like your thumb if your mom, your grandmother, maybe your dad, grandfather, or yourself are growing medicine plants at home that you make teas with when you're not feeling well. Okay, so there we go. All right, and so that's part of our ancestral connection to the lands, right, that our abuelitas keep alive for us. So what I would like some of you to share, what are the plants or teas that your family makes for you? And for what, like, what do they help you with?
My family and I used to grow corn, and then like in our back of yard, and then we got dogs and everything, so we stopped growing the corn because they would just destroy the plant. And my grandma would use the hair of the corn to make a tea.
What did that help with?
It was like for like my dad, like it was for the men to help them something with, I don't know, a tea. I don't really recall, but I remember she would, every single time it would like cut the corn, she would always like perlarlo, and then she would use the hair of the corn for the tea. And then right now we're growing tomillo or like that. Yeah, and like me or something like that, buena and everything too.
Beautiful. I know yerba buena is good for upset stomach, so it's all
Yeah.
medicine. Good, good, good. You're in good hands. Okay, we have Daniel back. Daniel, are you ready for us?
Yes, yes. I had to move to another room.
Thank you so very much for being with us. So go ahead and I'm going to hand it over to you. We're ready for you.
All right. Does this sound okay?
Yes.
Orale. All right. Well, thanks so much for having me. And I had a PowerPoint, but I had to switch things up a little bit. So it's a little bit more basic. I'm going to be sharing a Word document instead. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Vamos a ver. Whew, let me take a breath. ¿Dónde está? Aquí está. All right. So again, thank you so much for having me, and I hope that hope everyone's doing well, and definitely feel free to throw some questions at me. I'll see if I can. Hopefully, y'all can see that font okay. So identidad. How do you identify yourself? I mean, I know that the writer, the Chicana scholar, Gloria Saldúa, not that she struggled with that, but it's sort of, she struggled with the idea that she wanted to identify herself. She wanted to label herself. If anything, she did not take too kindly on people labeling her, if you will. And so there were, some self-identity that she threw on herself, right? Growing up in the deep South Texas borderlands, the title also of her famous book, Borderlands La Frontera. So my question to you also is, how do you identify yourself? And there's, more than one answer, perhaps. I mean, healer, friend. I mean, sometimes society, throws this idea at us that we have to, we don't have an identity until we have a diploma, or we don't have an identity until we have some kind of occupation. But I mean, you don't need a certificate to tell you that you're a healer. I used to do ventosas with a coin and a candle and a jar, the glass. I don't know what the word is, but the other word is, I don't know. So for the empacho and stuff, on somebody's back, you get a coin and you put a candle there and you put a glass top on that. There's some fancy name for it now. Cupping, I think it's called cupping. And you can pay all kinds of dollars for that. But I mean, I used to do it for these viejitos that my mom would send me to strangers and stuff. And because I had that touch, I suppose, I don't know. So mom identified me as a healer sort of early on. And that's what I did in the Navy. I was a medical person. I was a hospital corpsman. So society is going to try to, change your nature, who you are, and try to label you in your own way, in its own shape you into its way. But, we have to resist, right? So we, as Chicanos, we identify definitely by food, perhaps by religion or spirituality, by the color of our lovely skin, güeritos, morenitos, pretitos, all kinds. There's all kinds of us, right? Curly hair, straight hair, and so on. Even the sound of your name. And it's, no offense, but it's a little bit silly to tell people on Facebook, this is how I pronounce my name. But at the same time, looking at it from a different angle, that's the society that we've built, that people don't respect, don't even care, don't even ask, assume that it's pronounced a certain way. So, I mean, I'm not dogging anyone for doing that. I'm just saying it's a sad reality, right? And then again, it's a small way of empowering yourself and taking a little bit of your identity back. I'm not Johnny, I'm Juan, or whatever, I'm not Sandy. I mean, like my name, I'm Daniel. I had all kinds of nicknames as a baby, but when I got to kindergarten, I became Danny. And my mom in her broken English, call me Denny, like the Denny's restaurant. Like, so I was Denny for a long time, because my name had been anglicized, right? And so, but I have a Hebrew name. I love my name, Daniel, and what it means and so on. So our music, our art, even stuff that people say like it shouldn't be there, it's criminal, it's graffiti or whatever, our tacos, that's art. That's a work of art too, right? And again, you don't need a college degree. You don't need to have that chef, label in order to be a good cook, right? And you don't need a Netflix show to record you and to say like, oh, you don't need a chef, an award-winning chef from another country to say, oh, Mexican food is legit. We've known that, right? We don't need Netflix. It's cool that we're on Netflix too with our tacos, but that's just extra bonus. All right, so one of the topics I want to talk about is code switching. So what are some of y'all's attitudes toward code switching, or attitudes of your family, if you will? I don't want to assume that everyone knows a little Spanish, a little English, but perhaps most of us, many of us do. Sometimes grandmas are like, no hablas inglés, just puro español here in my house or whatever, right? Or tias or moms and dads are like that too. And, we have sometimes you have, like, to put it one way, you have white people say like, oh my God, like you're Mexican and you don't even know Spanish. And they're like, get all judgy on you. Well, it's because my parents were punished when they were kids. And you know what I mean? And they didn't want that for me, right? All parents want something quote unquote better for their kids, a better experience and so on. It was traumatic, right? These nuns would like smack you with rulers. If you were left-handed, they would smack you with rulers if you spoke Spanish or whatever. And so there's reasons, right? And so we don't need you to come over here and try to be like, oh my God, like I'm better than you because I know Spanish and you don't. Like, so there's code switching where we combine two languages. Some people misinterpret code switching as the mixing of Spanish and English, let's say, Chinese and English, whatever, there's people are learning English all over the world. So, but it's not the mixing, which becomes a new thing. Once you put chocolate and chile and combine it, it's mole sauce, right? You cannot undo that, right? So code switching is, keep this, still English and this is still Spanish. You just mix the order. You don't mix them together, combine them, but you just switch, you shift the order a little bit, right? So like the example I have here, Amá, el Friday voy a ir a un party con mis amigos después de las movies, regreso como las 11 or 11:30 por ahí, and a lot of times, because especially young kids, like kindergarten, first grade, they'll say things like this with names of the week. Why? Well, because in kinder and first grade, you're learning the names of the week, right? With the little songs and everything. And so time, often, and days of the week and so on gets combined in there. So code switching, what it's not is not a mestizaje. Again, it's not a mixing of two languages. It's just a shifting, keeping this, there's no such thing as a pure language, but keeping this quote unquote kind of sort of pure and this one separate, like it's about separating, right? Now, when you do combine languages into something new, you take that chocolate and you add that peanut butter. That's a new thing, right? So that's Spanglish or Tex-Mex. And I'm from Texas, and I'm not saying that like puro Texas. It's not about that. It's just Texas used to be a country, right? And it was so huge and went all the way to what we now call Idaho, but we're talking about Colorado, Nevada, Montaña, right? It's not Montana, it's Montaña, right? That these places were already, named by the natives, and then the Spanish came and named them, and then those were anglicized somewhat, So New Mexico, Arizona, California, you combine these languages into something new. Well, now it's new, it's a new language. What is the definition of language? The method of human communication, either spoken or written, consisting of the use of words in a structured and conventional way, a system of communication. So this is a new language. No, some people may not like it, but it's a brand new something new, something unique. And we could break it down using the rules, yo guacho, tú guachas, nosotros guachamos or whatever, right? There's rules, right? To our verbs, right? We have Spanish pronunciation, but it's not a Spanish definition necessarily or an English definition, especially when you use Calo. So Calo is that Pachuco, language that's taken from the gypsies from Spain who moved to Mexico, who came, to what now we call the US Southwest, right? And I mean, like, there's a YouTube video I'm sharing with you all about the word pedo, like, ¿qué pedo traes? ¿Quieres pedo? ¿Qué? Like, you want to fight or what, bro? Right? Or like, if you want to flirt with someone, like, mira, esa ruca quiere pedo, like, she wants to flirt with you. Right? I mean, so, but if you check out Google Translate, I mean, let me see if I can share my screen super quick. Like, I don't know if I can. No, pues just check out Google Translate from Spanish to English and put like "qué pedo," and it'll say like, "What fart? ¿Qué pedo traes? What fart did you bring?" Because there's no appreciation for this third language of Calo, which is Pachuco and Cholo talk, right? Ponte trucha and all that kind of stuff, right? So I will share with you some links, including like a dictionary or two or three with, a list of, some of these words that, again, have a Spanish pronunciation, but the definitions are going to be, very different. So I want to also talk to you about Gloria Saldúa. I don't know how much y'all have spoken about her, this semester at least, but she's from our hometown area here in Deep South Texas. In 2017, there was a Google Doodle for her. When she passed away, y'all, here in the valley where she's from, this region of Deep South Texas, the mouth of the Rio Grande is here. The opening of the Gulf of Mexico is here. That's where I'm from, way down Deep South Texas, 10 minutes from the Mexican border. When she passed away, very few people from this area went to the funeral. Very few people even knew. She was lesbian, and her parents, still loved her, but her dad died, kind of young. And, it was difficult for her to be open, to be herself, right, in the valley, in this area. She moved away to Austin, which didn't treat her too well, but then she moved to California, and that's where she made her life. That's the place that embraced her. That's her spirit, spoke, the ocean spoke to her, that ocean, even though we have the Gulf here. But when she died, little girls in China, y'all, mourned her death. And here locally, people don't even know her name even still. Why little girls in China? Well, because there's such an underappreciation, for females in China, even still now. I mean, the worth and the value of, if you Google abortion statistics for India or China, a tremendous percentage, high percentage, they're girls that are aborted. They're not valued. They're not educated. And in other words, they're not given a chance to become anything. And little girls in China connected with people like Gloria Saldúa. One of her famous texts is How to Tame a Wild Tongue, which has been part of the AP language and composition test, for example. So this essay, How to Tame a Wild Tongue. Can I get a volunteer just to read maybe the first half of it or so? Maybe around there, if y'all would be great to get a female voice on this.
I can do it. En boca cerrada no entran moscas, flies don't enter a closed mouth is a saying I kept hearing when I was a child. Ser habladora was to be a gossip and a liar, to talk too much. Muchachitas bien criadas, well-bred girls don't answer back. Es una alta de respeto to talk back to one's mother or father. I remember one of the sins I'd recite to the priest in the confession box the few times I went to confession. Talking back to my mother, hablar para atrás, repelar. Thank you. Hocicona, repleona, chismosa, having a big mouth, questioning, carrying tales are all signs of being malcriada.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Melissa. I think that was Melissa. Thank you so much. So this is part of close to the opening of that, wonderful essay, How to Tame a Wild Tongue. And basically she says, my tongue is a snake tongue. It's a two-forked tongue, and I will speak 2 languages or more. I will connect to my Indian roots. I will connect to my Aztec roots. I will be an hocicona, which is what the mouth of an animal versus for a human, it's a boca, but an animal is an hocico, right? And to say to a woman, no seas hocicona, right? Like you're calling her an animal, right? And she said, you know what? Yes, I'm an hocicona. And that's what made her so chingona, right? That's what just made her such a star. And so another of her just very famous, quotes that I want to throw out there for you. Can I get someone else also, maybe to read about that half or so? I appreciate it.
Yeah. So if you want to really hurt me, talk badly about my language, ethnicity, identity, is twin skin to linguistic identity. I am my language. Until I can take pride in my language, I cannot take pride in myself. Until I can accept as legitimate Chicano, Texas Spanish, Tex-Mex, and all other languages I can speak, I cannot accept the legitimacy, oh my gosh, I cannot say that word, of myself.
Yeah, I mean, if you really want to hurt me, talk badly about my language. I mean, I'm getting chills, not because of me, because of Gloria. I mean, like, that's some powerful stuff right there. Like, that's who I am. That's my identity. Why? As pointed out previously, they took our lands. They took our way of life. They killed our animals. They killed our forests. And they left us with they took our religion. They erased as much as they could. And in secret, sometimes it was literally beaten out of us, our language almost. But we still hold on to a little bit of that Nahuatl tongue, a little bit of that, that what makes us, right? Our identity. A short piece of a poem I wrote for Gloria, Our Serpent Tongue. This is something that a scholar from China is included in her dissertation. And so why am I bringing up China? Like, Gloria in Germany, in Belgium, in all over the world, y'all, in the Netherlands, in Indonesia, all over the world, she's being known and studied and appreciated. And again, in our hometown, ni la conocen. Some people don't even know her. They want to rename a school, change it from Robert E. Lee, the Confederate general, change it to her name because she's from that area. And some people are like, no, but she's a lesbian, so no. Don't change the school to her name. In 2020, this is going on right now. Our serpent tongue. Your Pedro Infanticide stops here. There shall be no mending of the fence. You set this bridge called my backyard ablaze with partition, division, labelization, fronterization, y otras pendejadas de alienization. Yo soy tejano, mexicano, americano, chicano, jodido, pagano, cristiano, pelado, fregado. I flick the slit at the tip of my tongue con orgullo, knowing that when a fork drops, es que ahí viene visita. A woman is coming, a woman with cunning, a woman sin hombre with a forked tongue is running her mouth, hocicona, a serpent tongue fregona, with linguistic cunning, a cunning linguist taking her token of your colonization into healing. Y para decir la verdad, you are not my equal. You cannot speak like me. You will not speak for me. My dreams are not your dreams. My voice is not your voice. You yell, oh dear Lord, in your dreams. I scream, a la chingada, in my nightmares. Your Pedro Infanticide stops here. There shall be no mending of the fence. Thank you. So she came up with several ideas that are still being, studied. And thank you. Like the idea of Nepantla, this in-between space, this liminal space. And it's something that literally physically is the border of Mexico and Texas, Mexico and the US. And we're in that in-between space in the border where we can get good tacos here. We can get, because we're so close, right, to the real thing, right, to the authentic thing. And yet Mexicans will say to us, you're not Mexican enough. Americans will say to us, you're not American enough because you're too in between. Now, Gloria later wrote, and she said, look, it's not just physically though, it's spiritual. Some of you young ladies and men are studying here. You're in that in-between space between high school and the rest of your life, between high school and career. That liminal space, that in-between space in your, between a teenager and a young adult, somewhere in there, right? All that spiritually, emotionally, being in this Nepantla state is something that she urged for you to like metamorphosize, right? Like to enjoy that time of being that ugly caterpillar. Because why? Because it's going to lead to growth. And not to say that to enjoy the protest and to enjoy the beatings and the jailings, but enjoy the time and use that time of change, like 2020. Use this time of change that's going to lead into the next phase of society, of your life, of Chicanismo, of Chicano literature, of whatever 2020 and 2021 are going to bring, right? This difficult time, that Nepantla time is not always pretty. That time of transition is the transition part, but then you get through it and you look back and say, okay, that's what helped to make who I am, right? I want to point out just a quick list of some visual artists like Carmen Lomas Garza. And I'm not, my time was, I have like about 6 minutes, I think. I don't know, maybe less.
Yeah, yes, you're good. You're good.
All righty. So I'm going to just, throw these names out just real quick. Carmen Lomas Garza, and I'm going to give you all these links to, so what I'll do is I'll add them, to Professor Valdez's Facebook video. That way everyone who watches the video can access that. But an important, one of the few females in the Chicano, I know that some of people are presenting about Chicano history, the movement. And unfortunately, there was not very many females involved in leadership roles and so on. She was one of the few who was invited as a visual artist, as a painter back in the 1960s, 1970s. So this South Texas young lady who, grew up to be a professor herself. And then a contemporary voice, if you will, an artist, Vincent Valdez. Both of these are part of like Chich Marin's excellent Chicano art, exhibit and so on. But I just wanted to throw out a little bit of love to some maybe lesser known Texas folks. Vincent Valdez, I mean, just amazing, amazing. He had a piece about the KKK that was at UT Austin, and they shut it down. It was too controversial. It reminded people too much of the truth of Stephen F. Austin coming over here and bringing slaves and so on, even though Mexico said you have to do two things to be here. You got to be a citizen, and that means be Catholic. You must, and no slavery. Well, this is what he brought. And then because you're in California especially, but I mean, the father of Chicano music. I want to end with that, and I'll go ahead and put it on the chat if I can. Let me stop sharing, y'all. So I want to give just the last 3 minutes or so. It's about a 2-minute video. Can I get Professora, can I get you to share that? It's about 2 minutes or so. The father of Chicano music from the 1930s and 40s, y'all, all the way till now. Lalo Guerrero from Mexico, but then California. He was sued by Disney. Walt Disney sued him because he came up with Las Arditas, which we know as the chipmunks. Well, he won because he invented Las Arditas. That was first. And he won, and he got this nice big house from Mr. Walt Disney. No, I'll go ahead and I'll just talk about him a little bit, I guess, or I don't know si se puede. Como quiera.
Did that show? Because I saw something weird on my end, but did it show okay? Okay, good.
Yeah, it did start the show, but I'll again, we can share it on your, I don't know if you have Blackboard or whatever. We'll share it on the Facebook también in the comments.
Oh,
So the father of Chicano music, we're talking about the Zoot Suits, y'all, back in the 1940s. This is when he started coming up with like very jazzy, boogie woogie, it was called back in the 1940s. This is the music as the Zoot Zoot riots, happened to, was music like his. And so he has ballads, he has mariachi songs. I mean, just very, very varied. And so Lalo Guerrero from Arizona originally, but then moved to California. And so I want to encourage you, to look at that. And I'll go ahead and just with the last few seconds or so, go ahead and just share the very final part of my presentation before we take some questions. So Lalo Guerrero, I mean, Los Chucos Suaves, all kinds of stuff. There's a song by Lalo Guerrero with the sung to the tune of Elvis, which was actually an opera, O Sole Mio. There's no tortillas, there's only bread. There's no tortillas, there's pan instead. The truth I cannot hide. There's no tortillas for my refried beans. So that's, and he did some silly stuff that was just fun like that. So as I close, I wanted to just throw out ideas for calls to action. Gloria Saldúa, again, you know, was one of the things that she called for is building bridges. So I know that's not specific, but again, don't let some man tell you what that means, what anything means, right? However, you, maybe if you want to go with this call to action, how can you build bridges between whether it's musically, artistically, even with food, and certainly politically, right? Building communities, building bridges. This is what Gloria's legacy is really all about. One tiny thing that I do as a call to action for myself is I insist that there's an accent on the I. If I cannot ask my friends to say, fix this on the flyer or whatever, how can I ask people that don't even like me or people like me, right? So Bob Dylan, he's like, hey, I like Tex-Mex conjunto music. That helped me with my music. If you Google cholos from Japan, there's cholos in Japan, guys, you know. And then a few other items that I'm gonna go ahead and share with you as just kind of for the future for other projects. So thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thanks, and I'll take questions, I suppose.
If you click on any of those links, it should play right from your screen.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, and I mean, yeah, let me play just a little bit of this Choco Suaves, for example.
Okay, let's see if it shows.
Let me, it's gonna open a hyperlink. I don't know if.
Yeah, we still see your document. Is that what it is? Or you can copy and paste it back in the chat. I know that the sound wasn't playing
document
on mute, but I didn't realize.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let me go ahead and try one more time.
Okay.
Hey Google, play some music. Sure, music on Pandora. Here you go.
All right, here it is. Alexa, stop. Alexa, stop.
Because Alexa's taken over. So while he's working on that, I also wanted to just kind of go over some words that are Nahuatl words, but we use them in Spanish now. So for example,
So President Bill Clinton awarded Lalo Guerrero with, I want to say, National Endowment for the Arts or some kind of big award and so on. So he's definitely like a national treasure. I mean, and even one of his mariachi songs is the unofficial like anthem of Mexico. Like, what a gift for this American, right? To get like, es la mera canción mexicana, you know? So definitely, you know, spend a little time with Lalo Guerrero as you can. And thank you so much for letting me share.
thank you, Daniel. All right, so questions and comments for Daniel, I should say. Questions and comments.
I just,
sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you for sharing about Evangelina, Gloria Evangelina. You know, I really like how she was, you know, one of those women that didn't let society define her. She didn't let those societal norms and stereotypes define her. And I really like that, you know. I feel like I'm like that too. You know, I like about all those stereotypes. Oh, women are supposed to be, you know, calm. You shouldn't be this and that. You know, I honestly don't agree with anything like that. You know, so I am really thankful that you shared about her. I'm really gonna look into her book.
Thank you so much. And I will share as well a link, for example. So again, I'll share them with the professor, but I'll share them also on the Facebook. I'll put on the comments to the videos. So there's a documentary called Altar, and a movie maker from Italy, right? A professor from Italy made an altar to Gloria, right? In the Mexican tradition of altares, right? So the film itself is a work of art as an homage, because Gloria was actually an artist as well as an essayist and so on. Her father gave her that middle name Evangelina, not in an evangelical sort of meaning like that, because she was a character in a story from an ancient story from Spain, or an old story from the Middle Ages of Spain, who was this fregona, you know, and her dad gave her that middle name and encouraged her to be herself. And Gloria's like, I'm going to chop off my hair, and I'm not going to, no voy a cerrar las piernas, you know, I'm going to freaking sit like I want to sit or whatever. So thanks so much for sharing that, Azucena, which is an awesome name, by the way.
Thank you.
Other questions and comments?
I was going to say about the code switching, how you explained it. I think that was really awesome that you said that to us, because I mean, I learned that in my communication class as well, about code switching and how we change our personalities, our ways, because that's what society wants us to do and wants us to be what they want us to do. And I really appreciate you saying that, because once we switch that like persona off, we're not who we are. And I feel like that's something that we need to get back to our roots and be ourselves, and not let society tell us like, if you want to speak Spanish, speak Spanish. Like, just be you. And if that's what your family wants and wants you to do, you should do it. And same with like me, with like, because I'm mixed, and I don't like wearing I do like wearing my hair curly now, but before I never did, because that's what society told me not to do. And I never saw beauty into it. And now I do. I see so much beauty in my hair, and I appreciate it much more, and I appreciate my culture a lot more because of what reality has shown me. And yeah, I just want to say that too.
And you know, and thank you so much, Ty, for sharing that. And I mean, so you know, here we are as Chicanos. I mean, we have the Indian roots, we have the perhaps Spanish or other European roots as well that are part of also our blood, right? So we're already mixed. I mean, in many ways, all of us are mixed, y'all. We're all from Africa. We're all from Africa. You know, scientifically, right? Check your mitochondrial DNA, tells us we came from 4 women basically from Africa. That's just science, right? So esto de que no, pues que pure Spanish or whatever, like, o sea, habla puro español, o sea, en mi casa nada más puro español, o sea, así en internet, time out, you're not speaking Spanish, you just say internet, that's Greek, right? So all these judgy people, like, we all code switch. Don't be saying taco if you don't want to code switch, come on now, right? So not that people are hypocrites, it's just that they're ignorant, and I don't say ignorant in a negative way, just they don't know, right? Thank you so much for sharing that.
So today, as long as with other days, and again, if anybody else has questions or comments, please go ahead and speak up. But it's really about exploring our identity as a people even more, right? So that you see the vastness of our identities. There's just so much to cover, whether we're talking about our indigenous and ancestral connection to the land, right? Because we're on the land of our ancestors and many other indigenous peoples. Or just even in the code switching and in the languages, in our hair, in our skin tone, all of that, even how we pronounce our names, like everything is about identity. And the thing about being Chicana and Chicano is that we push the envelope against you have to be this or that. And as a people, we say, chale with that. We're going to be all of it. We're going to be all of it, and we're going to embrace all of it because that's who we are, and we don't have to give up any part of who we are. And that's the beautiful thing about being Chicana and Chicano, is that we just take all of it and embrace it. And it's a lot to learn, and it's a lot to embrace, But that's why we're here, right? We're here to learn and share in this collective memory and this collective knowledge so that we can learn from one another what that is. Whether it's, you know, abuelita made me this kind of tea to help me feel better from this ailment, to whatever it may be. But this is who we are as a people. It's rich and it's beautiful. So any other comments or questions for either Daniel or Elena?
I actually have one question for Danielle. Like, for breaking the stereotype for that, like code switching and stuff, how do we achieve that? Like building the bridges for other people and not having that stereotype on other cultures. How do we do that as a whole? How do we do that as a young generation to stop the stereotypes from people seeing us as like, you know, a nuisance to people? Like, how do we do that? How do we show, like, we don't have to even show them. How we just, it makes me angry when people say they see us the way that we want to be seen, but they don't see it. And it makes me really upset and hurting because in my eyes, I see this world in a beautiful way, but then in other eyes, it's just anger and madness. It's really sad.
Thank you, Taya, for that. You were, I mean, judging from y'all's ages and so on, I mean, roughly, I mean, I'm a student of, I placed something on the chat there for you real quick. So I'm a student of, I don't know, pop culture and stuff like that. I'm not an expert, but you know, I noticed around 2008, I'm not sure how old you were. I know you were young, like maybe too young. Around 2008, I noticed something on television, y'all. I noticed a black man kissing a white woman for the first time in a commercial. Now, it had happened in movies, okay? It had happened in TV shows, yes. But a commercial, that's a risk because that company is announcing to the world, we don't care what you think. If you don't like that kiss, you're not going to buy our product, right? It's a big risk, right? So Levi's jeans, and this is going to sound mean, but I'm not saying it in a mean way, okay? But it was a black man, and no offense, but he wasn't like super duper handsome, like that feito a little bit. All right, I'm just saying why, because like just to add that little like, if it was Denzel, pues está bueno, pues it's Denzel, we forgive him. No, it was like, no offense, like a really normal looking guy kissing this really, you know, really blonde, really, you know, beautiful white lady, and you know, so I typed there on the chat, empowerment, oppression. My so subtitle of my book, it's Sensontle, Mockingbird, and then the subtitle is Songs of Empowerment. But as I mentioned earlier, or alluded to earlier, I'm not trying to empower y'all. The Declaration of Independence said that we get our rights from our creator, not from the King of England, not from any man, not from any woman, not from any human. We already were born this way. We already were born with our empowerment. And y'all have to not seek empowerment from parents, from political leaders, from teachers. You know, as much as we love you as teachers, you got to realize that you have the power to be you, right? And so I will say this last thing, you know, the oppressors are not going to give you the power. They're going to push back. But y'all, young people, especially Latinos, Chicanos, you have the power to vote. I mean, you're not millennials, I don't think. You're younger, right? But that's fine. But just with millennials plus, y'all, together, voting wise, you have so much power that's untapped. So take it. Don't wait for permission. Use social media because old people don't know how to use it, but you do. And you can make a change now. When I was younger, I used to think, I wish I was, you know, alive with Martin Luther King. I would have marched because I was thinking, plus that's over. There's so much more to fight for now, right? So social media, vote, register, and just be loud and proud.
That's right, y'all. And that's a beautiful way to close this conversation. Elena, any last words before we go? We have like 30 seconds.
I think this actually worked out really well with and resonated with what Daniel said too, because again, I do think nature connection is the common thread that links us all in our humanity across the globe and has potential for healing us on many different levels, and addresses a lot of our social questions that we've had today. And I loved what Daniel was speaking about, because I grew up listening to Lalo and a lot of those people. So, yeah, so that's all I want to say. And you guys did say it was pleasure, real pleasure to spend some time with you all today. Thank you.
All right, y'all. So if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself so that you can say your goodbyes and thank yous to our very special guest speakers, now's the time, and I will see you all on Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Bye.